Hi, Sparkles, and welcome back to Intuitive Wisdom. This is episode 206. Today, we're diving into courage, connection, and the human spirit. Our guest is Jules Kuroda, a corporate hippie, wanderer, and the author of the new book, The Innate Self. In it, she explores how we can move beyond just mind, body, and heart connection to engage the part of ourselves that seeks meaning, belonging, and purpose. We're wired for connection. And shared experiences, especially with nature, remind us of how deeply we are all linked. Nature is full of symbolism and lessons if we take the time to listen. We'll explore how courage isn't just a grand gesture. It's showing up, making choices, and getting just a little bit better each day. If you've ever felt limited by the ideas you have of yourself or wondered how to bring more joy, meaning, and fulfillment into your life, this conversation is for you. We'll tap into practical wisdom, nature's insights, and a little Carmen Sandiego energy, because sometimes life is an adventure. To all my fellow seekers out there, wherever you are in your journey, this episode is an invitation to connect, reflect, and step into more of yourself. Here we go. Welcome to Intuitive Wisdom, a space where insight meets energy and intuition leads the way. I'm K. Margaret Solorio, author, Angel Reiki Master, biotech graduate, and a guide for those seeking alignment in their home and life. Whether you're navigating change, clearing emotional clutter, or simply craving clarity, Intuitive Wisdom invites you to slow down, tune in, and rise into your authentic self. New episodes weekly. Come home to your own knowing. Okay, Sparkles, quick announcements before we get to today's awesome conversation with Jules. I first want to have a shout out to Corey B. from San Jose. He left a beautiful 5-star rating and review on Insight Timer for my meditation, Begin Your Day with Peace and Positivity. Corey wrote, very nice way to start this new day. This meditation helped me to set my mood for the day ahead. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Thank you again, Corey. I'm so happy to hear you found this helpful. Then the day is yours. All the best. And if you haven't tried my free quiz yet, I have a free quiz called Is Your Home Supporting Your Expansion? It only takes a few minutes and you'll get a clear insight into how your space may be shaping your energy and where you can shift things. Excuse me. It just starts to help you think about the energy in your house. So you can go to deliciousease.com/quiz to grab your copy. And if your space is feeling heavy or stuck or just a little off, or you've just made a big life transition, you've moved, you've had a breakup, you've had a new baby, whatever the new big life transition is, my home frequency reset service is a great way to clear and kind of reset that energy and allow the space to become more in alignment with who you are becoming. It's a remote, intuitive, energetic refresh. And it's, perfect if you're craving a fresh start. So go to deliciousease.com/services to see the options there. And last but not least, my book, Make Ease Your Vibe, is now available on Amazon. It's both in paperback and Kindle versions. It's packed with practical strategies for shifting your energy, managing your time, and kind of resetting your mindset so you can focus more on the positive and release some of that negative self-talk. Plus, you get access to exclusive chapter bonuses once you've purchased your copy on my website. You can go to, again, deliciousease.com. Right, let's get to the conversation. Welcome again, Jules. Thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. Well, you may know on this podcast, I like to explore the magic that happens when you learn to hear and trust your intuitive wisdom. So I'm curious for you, what is one of the greatest insights you've received from your intuitive wisdom?
Great question. I feel like, the way I think about intuitive wisdom is like it's a practice. And so there have been lots of moments in my life where I felt like guided and like I've been given direction. But I think there is an invitation into kind of stepping into that in the daily life. But it does require like creating space and quieting the mind and knowing where that is kind of coming from. Sometimes we can get our intuition kind of all wrapped up with our emotions and we can mislead that. So it's really important to kind of practice how to step into that deeper knowing instead of letting it letting all the conversations that we have in our head guide the way all the time.
Yeah, so you can, what's the right, like discern it almost.
Absolutely.
That makes sense. Well, your book is out now, and that's what we are celebrating today. I'm quite excited. Congratulations. That is a
Thank
big
you.
accomplishment. It's called The N8 Self. Would you describe for us what you mean by the N8 Self and what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah. So, one of the things, having worked with people across multiple countries, and I've worked in lots of different types of industries. I've been in nonprofit, academia, and corporate. And there was something from a coaching perspective, we're given all these frameworks. We're given frameworks to kind of understand our thinking and limiting beliefs. We're given frameworks to understand somatic work and like where we hold tension in the body and how that relates to trauma, and or emotion that's held up. And then we're taught a lot about kind of emotional intelligence and how to understand and read people. But we haven't had like common language for what's that piece of us that's a little bit more esoteric in nature, that looks for meaning and purpose and joy and wants to create. And that is the innate self. And I think it's really a powerful idea when you start to recognize it as something that is both individual, as in I have it, but it's universal. You have it too. And I think it's one of those things that sometimes we experience with each other. We tap into it. And I've tapped into it, I think, most with easily with people that maybe I haven't always been able to communicate with, because we're outside of language, we're outside of ideology, and we're in the moment, we're in life together, and we're experiencing something. And there are things as humans that make us all go into awe and that make us laugh. And, that touches into sort of that innate piece of us that just feels that connectivity of humanity. And so I think that it's a really important kind of aspect of self that sometimes is left out of the conversation, because I think we haven't always had the language for it, or it's been sort of relegated for a more religious connotation. And there's space for that too, for sure. But I think it's important that it's in our everyday lexicon, and so that's what inspired me to write the book.
Yeah, I love that you talk about the universal quality. You reminded me of experiences I think about actually it like watching movies. Like I feel, and you talk a little bit, I bet about this in your book, that social media has, or technology being so readily available has distanced us some bit from this, isolated. And I was just noticing that like I miss sometimes those communal movie experiences where everyone's so excited. It's not as easy to access. We all went, the theater was packed, and everybody's experiencing the emotions of the movies in the moment together. It's
Hmm.
such a powerful experience
Hmm.
when you're all in it. Instead, we all, I don't know, maybe thanks to COVID, mostly watch movies at home, like with our families or by ourselves, and not in this huge community environment where you're right. In that moment, you don't know everybody, but you're all in it.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're touching on something that I feel like is so important, in terms of the social conversation that we have, which is like, I think so many of us have gotten kind of in our own individual bubbles, and we can thank COVID for a lot of things. But I think some of that separation has been sort of a natural evolution out of COVID, and humans we evolve so quickly and we adapt so quickly that it can start to feel super normal to feel
Hmm.
isolated. And I want to remind us all, and I've needed to be reminded that that's actually not how we're wired. We're wired to connect, and we don't have to connect through the ideas that we have and shared beliefs. Like that's one way of connecting, but it's not the only way of connecting. And I think, what I see happening in a lot of the social media forums is we started to build sort of ideological camps, which actually only kind of furthers this separation and isolation, into our society, into our into these little factions that we get caught up in. And I feel like we need to break some of that down. And the best way to break that down is through the human touch, right? To be in presence with one another, to have shared experiences with one another. And all of a sudden we step right back into that feeling of connectivity. I talk about it as a thread of humanity, where, we have all of these common experiences around the world. Take childbirth for one. Like, women who go through childbirth, like it doesn't matter where you come from or what religion you're from or what culture you're from. Like that's a shared experience that women who've been through that can all understand what it is to go through that change of life. And there's all of these different things. There's things for men that they have these rites of passage. And I think it's just so important that we reconnect to those things because they are opportunities for us to see each other as whole people, not just the sum of the ideas and thoughts that we have.
And I like to, the way you express that reminds me of, so I trained and went to university for science, and now I've gotten really into the spiritual work. And it feels like the more I learn, the more we're all talking about the same thing from different viewpoints, and you're just using different words for the same thing. And I
Mhm.
feel like a lot of times when we do separate into groups, it's all for the same reason. And
Mhm.
we just have these different words and different viewpoints so that if you step out, it's really not different, even though sometimes, I guess, feels better to differentiate yourself from
Yeah.
others to find that identity, even though we're all on the same boat
Yeah,
or
for
planet,
sure.
I suppose.
For sure. And I think nature is so symbolic of this. Like you can find so many different pieces in nature that you can focus on and you can look at like trees or a forest and you can think, oh, this is one type of species and one type of tree. But the more that you start to study it, the more you understand it's a part of a greater ecosystem and that it's all related to one another. And that the root system's actually connected to totally different types of trees and that it's fungi that actually sits between and sends messages. And so if you start to pull anything out and just look at it in isolation, you miss the whole, and all of its parts and how it feeds one another, it communicates to one another. And I think we're so similar, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. You also reminded me of nutrition. When I grew up, there was a big push of like, oh, fat is bad. Oh, carbs are good. Oh, vitamin C is what you need all the time. Otherwise, you won't survive an airplane flight. Oh, like it was a like focus on one thing being the solution to the
Mhm.
point where I was like, there's no way we know enough about vitamins to understand what activates it, what it works well in conjunction with, what is actually going on, even if we can
Mhm.
see that one piece of the puzzle, or studying DNA, like when they find
Mhm.
one gene and we say, oh, this activates this in this one particular situation we were able to observe. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fascinating when you put those pieces together.
absolutely.
Well, back to your book, I
Yeah.
would like to share with everyone if you could describe the 8 core characteristics we each have that you've mapped out.
Yeah. So I start with character, and character, I start with it because it's kind of foundational to that core of self that we want to build on. And our character, we have to decide the character that we want to have. It's one of those things that has to be worked on, and it largely is connected to our value system and our moral compass. And so that's sort of where we start is on our character pillar. And then from there, we go into contribution. I've never met a human anytime, Margaret, that doesn't want to contribute to the world around us using our talents and our skills, right? We want to have an impact on the world. And
Mhm.
so it's really important that we know how we're contributing and that we feel like we are contributing in order to feel that kind of fulfillment. And then that takes us into connection. And connection is something I talk about connecting with ourselves, which is really key to being able to connect with other people, to know, what do I care about in life and what do I want my meaning to be or my purpose and what am I after as I think about my own personal development. And we start from that place and then connecting with each other, I think is so key. And I talk a lot about nature in that section as well. And then from there, we go into creativity. And it's such a fun one. It's such a fun aspect of our innate self. And one of those that I find a lot of like, I have to do a lot of debunking. I think not all of us think of ourselves as being creative because we think of creativity as this like super slit, like a narrow slice of being a painter or an artist. But that's only one type of creative energy. And there are 4 different types. And so I try to help break that down. There's a quiz in the book that you can take to help identify like your personal type of creativity, which I think is such a key aspect for having joy in
Mhm.
our lives. And it's also how we love to express ourselves. So I talk about we're either creating or destroying because that energy has to go somewhere. So that's our 4th aspect. And then we go into gratitude. And gratitude is something that's gotten a lot of PR, just about the importance of it. But I think about pain as being a pathway to gratitude and talk a lot about how a lot of times we understand gratitude much better if we've come from a place of lacking, because then we understand what it is to have. And so, how do we generate that within ourselves and perpetuate and dwell on those things in a positive way? And then we go from there into generosity. And generosity is, it's what we do for others out of feeling that fulfillment in our own life. And generosity can also look like a lot of things. It's not just financial generosity. It can also be generosity of spirit, generosity of words. So how we affirm one another, which is such a key thing into feeling like we have enough. There's this like inverse relationship we have where the more we give, the more we feel like we have. So it's such a powerful one to start to recognize. And then I talk about courage, and courage is something I think a lot about because I think we are living in a time where it's so easy to do what's popular and to see what's popular and to try to emulate that. And what does it mean to really be courageous? And I think about courage as being you do something that's brave, but there's a purpose that's greater than you. So there's a little bit of self-sacrifice embedded in that kind of courage. And I think it's a really great thing to exercise, and we can practice it through encouragement. So the more that I encourage you to be your best self, the more I start to feel a little emboldened, a little emblazed. I feel like exercising those muscles myself.
And it
And then from
also,
there,
sorry to
it's okay.
interrupt, it
No,
also
that's okay.
feels like that then, I mean, it really feels like each component is building on each other. Like once you master the first, you can go on to the next, but also you get to express all of those things in being courageous. You said not, you talked about wanting to do what was popular, but I fell into the trap when I started my business that also I felt like that was the only way. I didn't know how to do entrepreneurship necessarily, and I wasn't confident in it. So I tried to seek out all the ways that would, oh, if I do this, I will be successful. End of story. And I did all the things and I still wasn't where I wanted to go. And I was like, okay, there's more to it than that, which is what brought me into the spiritual and the being side of life. But having that courage to trust your creativity or trust that what you want to do is a thing too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's so well said and such an important reminder. It is so easy for us to think that, how other people have gotten there is how we will get there too, or how we should get there. And there's some real beauty and magic, I think, in finding your own path. But it definitely takes courage to
It
to blaze
does.
to blaze that trail. Yeah, and then the last characteristic is meaning. And I talk about micro meaning and macro meaning. And micro meaning is, humans, we're meaning makers. We make meaning out of everything. So from the smile on your face, how I
I love
interpret
that.
that,
Meaning makers.
we are meaning makers. So, to like we don't get a text reply from a friend, we make meaning out of that. That's micro meaning. It's how we're interpreting the everyday interactions of our life. And then we have macro meaning, and that's where we're asking sort of the big questions. What is the purpose of life? Am I living up to my potential? What should I do next, with my energy or skills? And those are the macro meaning questions that lead us into finding purpose. And I personally, I'm such a meaning seeker. Some people I think are higher on that index than others, but we all look for meaning in whatever way that we do. And so pulling that in and being intentional about it, I think gives a lot more like personal power to the work that we do on ourselves and the work that we put out into the world by being clear with ourselves around what we're trying to accomplish and finding that purpose in it.
Yeah, I love that. And creating this beautiful definition of all these different areas also kind of allows you to find meaning in each level. Because I think when we do step back, it's almost confusing and chaos at first. And it's like, okay, well, I was curious where I fit in, but now I really don't know where I fit in. And yeah, then you can go, well, how do I want to be in this
Mhm.
facet because we're such multifaceted beings. I used to feel like I was conditioned that I had to change myself to fit each of those facets. And the more work I do in personal development and spirituality, the more I understand how I get to forge myself and then present myself in all those different facets of life. So I like that your framework really does include that multifaceted sense of self.
Yeah, but what you also described is it takes so much courage. It's like I'm just going to bring myself into the world, and the people who are meant for me will find me. And it takes real courage to operate that way, I think, because going back to our need for connection, we're so afraid of rejection or not being loved. It's a main driver in our behavior as humans, because we are really wired for that social connection. And we can forget that because we can live right up here and tell
Definitely.
ourselves, I can do it alone. I can go my own way. Yes and no, right? We still, to accomplish anything in life, we have to have people. For me to be able to be a coach, I have to have you on the receiving end of my coaching. Like there's nothing that truly lives in isolation. And I think once we start to really understand that, there's a freedom on the other side of that in my mind because it kind of takes some of that pressure off. Like it's just our job to show up and to work on ourselves and to be, kind and thoughtful human beings that care about each other. And if we are that, wow, and we're focused on connecting with each other and giving our gifts to the world and meaning and purpose. Wow, wouldn't that be amazing? Like that's the kind of world I want to live in.
Yeah, the responsibility with that comes with choice gives you the freedom that we
Hmm.
all seek. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm.
You've mentioned nature a few times, so I would like
Hmm.
to talk a little bit more about that. I've done some more gardening this year and found that really grounding.
Yeah.
And you give lots of examples in your book about the importance of nature and being out in the natural world, and this idea of connection. So I was curious if you could tell us some more ways that we can connect with nature and fill that connection cup maybe on a daily basis.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Nature is one of those things. I'll start by, during the pandemic, we were those crazy people that got an RV and
I
went
read that. That's
and traveled.
amazing.
It was such a gift, honestly, because until that moment in my life, I hadn't spent time with what I'll call big nature, right? It's like sitting in front of the mountains for days on end,
Just
sometimes
feels
without
like the
internet.
ultimate rebellion. Like the world goes, "Excuse me, pandemic." And you go, "Really? Watch this."
Well, I don't do with being trapped very well. It's a part of my Carmen Sandiego energy. I like to be out. So where do you go? But anyways, it was such a beautiful experience because as the world of people was kind of shutting down, all of a sudden I was just seeing this massive amount of expansiveness in nature.
Mm.
And because of that juxtaposition, it really taught me a ton about what nature has to offer us that I think we kind of just get clued out of in our day-to-day bustle of life. But nature is such a to me, I think about it as a blueprint for life. Like I think there's so many secrets and so much wisdom that it has if we take the time to notice and observe and dare I say listen. And one of those things that I got really into biomimicry, which is a really interesting study of how we can use nature systems to build our world. And Janine Benyus is like a huge person in this space, and she's a genius. And I just like dove into all of her stuff. And part of what they really explore is the ecosystem effects of things. So I talked a little bit about trees, but if you think about like we don't think about how the desert and the ocean are connected, but they are. And what happens is as the ocean starts to evaporate, right? Those particles of dust get into the air and they blow over and they start to become a part of the sands that we see. So they hold these particles of life. And so as you start to understand like the ecosystem effects of things, you're like, wow, all this stuff is super interconnected. And we are a part of this. There's nothing in our lives that we have outside of nature. From the food we eat, to the air we breathe, to the water we drink, to the clothes we wear, it all comes from the world around us. But we box ourselves in, I think, and I'll come back to the mind a little bit because I think we see ourselves as so separate.
Mhm.
And in some ways it empowers us to have mastery and dominion and all of these things, and accomplish much. But in other ways, I think it really tears down some of the fabric of understanding ourselves and the world in that we live in, and how we all are, connected. And I think spending a little time thinking about that, I personally found it quite humbling, but I also found it to be really encouraging. Like, okay, this earth has lived for a much longer time than I have, and will continue to do so. And there is wisdom in the design. It's been beautifully and wonderfully made, I would say. And so what can I, in my little tiny human life, sit back and observe, and learn from as I see this like masterful ecosystem and how all of it works together. And so I think there's just something really beautiful about that if we allow ourselves. And we don't have to sit in big nature to do it, taking a walk and just observing, the trees or the vegetation around us. Like I've been doing a study on urban farming, which I think is such a cool thing that is popping up in different communities. I am not a gardener. I can't keep a house plant alive to save my life, to my shame. I could show you my plant right now. It's like withering, and my husband just bought it for me last week. I'm just not good at tending to it, but I definitely appreciate people who can. And there's a gift to that. And I think like I've tried, there's something about having your hands in the soil and being connected to the earth that's very grounding. And I think that just doing things that help us reconnect and ground, taking some deep breaths in it, I mean, it really does have an effect on us because we're a part of it.
Yeah, I love that. In my work, I work with home energies and talking about how to bring plants or even pictures of plants or bird sounds in the background, or like you said, refreshing the air, and how much that can help raise the vibration, and you can feel calmer and all those wonderful effects.
Mm-hmm.
What do you hope readers take away from your book?
You know, I pause because there's so many things, but I think if I had to choose one thing, like my first inclination is to say, I hope that you get what you need from it.
Yeah.
And I say that because I've built some quizzes in there to help you identify, like you said it earlier, like sometimes when we take a step back, it can feel really chaotic and we don't know where to start. And my goal in writing this was to try to be a guide. It's like, I don't want this to feel overwhelming. I don't want this to feel so esoteric that you're like, I don't know, now I need to quit my job and go on a like soul wandering journey across the world. Even though if you want to do that, do it. But you know what I mean? May not be practical for everybody. And so just really having someone kind of walk you through, and feel guided in your own journey was my genuine aspiration when writing the book. But I hope that, you feel a little encouraged, a little bit more connected to yourself, to others, maybe a little courage, or a little bit more meaningful, like whatever it is that you're searching for on this spiritual journey. I hope that you find a little nugget in there that you go, yes, you know what? I am creative. I've just been telling myself I'm not creative because I'm not a painter, but I'm a functional creative. I build stuff. And that offers you some sort of, liberty, some personal freedom to explore and see yourself in a new way.
Wonderful. Well, please tell us the best place for people to connect with you and your work.
Yeah. So my book right now is on Amazon. It's the N8, like N8, the letter and the number. And you can also check me out at my website, innatelf.com, or I am on Instagram, Innate Coach.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I very much appreciated this conversation.
Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you for joining me on Intuitive Wisdom. If this episode brought you clarity or inspiration, please take a moment to leave a 5-star review. It truly helps others find this space. And if someone you love, you could use a shift in energy, share this episode with them. You never know what might resonate. For more, explore my frequency reset service, tune into more episodes, or begin the journey through my book, all at deliciousease.com. That's DELICIOUSEASE.com. All right, until next time, trust your energy, honor your space, and keep coming home to yourself.